So hello and welcome back to our Lives of the NPCs, where this week we're going to do something a little bit different and do a whole bunch of NPCs because, as you probably know, last week was Children's Week. Children's Week is a holiday in World of Warcraft. It is also known as the Week of the Wardens. It is celebrated by both the Horde and the Alliance, and it is celebrated in Orgrimmar, it is celebrated in Stormwind, it is celebrated in Shattrath, it is celebrated in Dalron, it is also celebrated in Kul Tiras and in Zandalar. There are orphanages in all of these cities, and in all of these cities you can adopt or babysit a orphan. And I figured we would go through and just talk a little bit about everybody that is in this holiday, because not all of them have a massive amount of lore behind them, but some of them have some interesting facts that I figured I would share. I was like, you know what, let's just do this. So we're gonna start off with the Stormwind Orphan Matron Nightingale. Now, Orphan Matron Nightingale is a human. She is in the Cathedral Square of Stormwind City, and she runs the orphanage, and they take in all of the various orphans in the wars that Stormwind has had throughout its history, and there have been a lot of orphans. And so she gives you a nice little whistle where you can whistle up your very own orphan. Randus is a cute little human child, and he wants to go and he wants to see all sorts of things. The first thing he wants to do is he wants to go to the Stormwind Embassy. He wants to see all of the new adventurers, and he thinks that maybe he should give them some cookies or something. But after he meets the embassy people, then he wants to go to Ironforge. He does say that he's been to Ironforge and he thinks it smells funny. I don't know what he's referring to. I am actually thinking he's probably just referring to the smell of all the molten iron from all of the forges in Ironforge. But you take him to Ironforge because he doesn't want to meet the current rulers. No, he wants to meet Magni Bronzebeard because he hears that the king of Ironforge has been turned into a diamond, and he wants to see the Diamond King. So you take him down into Old Ironforge, and he's a little bit disappointed to find out that Magni is not there anymore, but he still thinks that he had a lot of fun. The next thing that he wants to do is he wants you to take him out to Westfall, because there is a magical ride that he wants to go on, which is one of my favorite things to do. I always do Children's Week, just because it is so much fun to jump on the mechanical chopper with the sidecar and take Randus for a quick spin around the rift. It's really funny. At one point, he takes control from you, and you end up kind of going out of control. He crashes into a slime. The slime gets stuck to his head. It's kind of awesome. But you do land safely back. He's a bit shaken, his stomach is a bit upset, but he makes it through. And then it's time to take this poor child back to Stormwind. You know, he's a little bit sad about that, but it is time to go back to Stormwind. But before you take him back to the orphanage, he does want a couple of things. He would like to fly some kites with you, so you buy some nice dragon kites. And he also heard that the mages have set up an ice cream stand, and he wants some ice cream. So you get the lovely child some ice cream and take him back to the orphanage, but not before stopping and buying some foam swords for all of his orphan friends. And you know, that was pretty much where you leave it. He does give you a pet, and you have your choice And thankfully, you can actually do this on every alt that you have, so you can get all of the pets in one Children's Week, which is pretty good. But he gives you the choice between a turtle, a rat, a piglet, and a snail. And if you have all of the pets already and you don't want to get any more, then you can get a pet care package, which has magical treats, usually a battle stone, sometimes a little vanity item, or you can get the curmudgeon's payoff, which is 5 gold. So that was Randus, but he does have a horde counterpart, and his horde counterpart is Grunth. But before we talk about Grunth, it is time to talk about Orphan Matron Battle Whale. She is the quest giver in Orgrimmar, and she is located in the Drag, and she works at the orphanage with Tosmina. And she actually has an interesting little bit of lore that during the siege of Orgrimmar, both Matron Battle Whale and her counterpart Tosmina kept the orphans safe by barricading the orphanage and locking the door. They were ready to fight anybody that tried to get at their orphans, which I think is very, very cool. She's also, I think, a little bit tougher than Orphan Matron Nightingale. When you talk to her, she says pretty much the exact same thing as Nightingale did. She just, talks about these poor kids and how there's just far too much war, and she watches out for them. So, just like Nightingale, she gives you a whistle and lets you summon Grunth. Now, Grunth, just like his alliance counterpart of Randus, he wants to go to the embassy, and he wants to see all of the new allies that the Horde has gotten. And he says pretty much the same thing as Randus there. He also would like to go to the grave of Cairn. So you take him out to Thunder Bluff, and you go out there and visit the grave of Cairn. And he says he would like to be a big, strong warrior like Cairn was. And then, after that, he also takes you for a ride. And he takes you out to Ajara, and you ride the Rocket Way. Which, if you've never actually ridden the Rocket Way, this is a good time to do it, because you do get a quest reward for it. But it is so much fun. And just like Randus, he takes the controls away from you for a little while. You go a little bit wild and crazy, you do some spins. He doesn't get a slime on his head, but that is, I feel like these kids are definitely a little too rambunctious for their own good. And then exactly the same, except just in Orgrimmar, you take him back, you fly kites with him, you get the boy some ice cream, buy some foam swords for the rest of the orphans, and take him back. Now, when we move on to Shattrath, which is very interesting, the characters have a bit more story to them. In the Burning Crusade, the Children's Week was extended to Shattrath. And out in Shattrath, you visit with Orphan Matron Mercy. She's a jungle troll, and she runs the orphanage alongside Nicole Bartlett, who is a human. If you go into this orphanage, it has something that you don't see a lot in World of Warcraft. Or at least I didn't see a lot until I started looking for them. And that is, it actually has babies of all of the Alliance and Horde races that were in the game during Burning Crusade. And when you talk to her, she says, "The conflicts in Outland are deadlier than any I have ever seen. And their most tragic victims are the children that are left behind. Now, with the threat against Shattrath from the Arakoa of Skeksis, there will be even more orphans to take care of. These children often live without the hope of any bright future. But you have the power to do something about that. It's Children's Week, and I implore you to volunteer to bring joy and wonder into a child's life. And then, depending on if you're Horde or Alliance, you get one of two different little girl orphans. So if you're a Horde, you get Salandria. And her parents were killed in a war. We never really know which war, but as a result, she grew up in the Shattrath orphanage from the time she was a baby. She made friends with a sporling, Hachu, until he was later taken back to Sporagar, or she, by her people. And Salandria wasn't sure what she wanted to be when she grew up. She thought about being a mage, she thought about being a warlock, or even a blood knight. She even considered being a rock star, because one of the things that you do when you take her out on her questing is take her to see the elite Tauren chieftain, and she shows them just how well she can air guitar to the song Power of the Horde. You take her all over Outland, and the last place you take her to is actually the Caverns of Time, where the dragon there reacts a little bit interestingly to her. And in the old questing, now it did not actually, it doesn't do it anymore. I'm thinking, I remember doing this quest with her years ago, but it didn't go through this year. But in the old questing, she wanted to be taken to the Blood Knight's Hall of Blood in Silvermoon, and she unexpectedly displayed the ability to channel power from the imprisoned Naru Mauru, who was there, which impressed Lady Liandrin so much that she decided that Salandria belonged with the Paladins, and she ended up getting adopted by Liandrin and the Blood Knights, which leads us to an interesting little bit of trivia about her, which is that when Salandria grew up, she became a trainee of the Blood Knights. And in Shadowlands, you can actually see her again. The Lady Liandrin sends you out to visit the Kyrian and the Maldraxi for help in empowering a Ransur who could defeat Volrath. Now, I'm reading this from Wowipedia because I kind of sort of skipped a lot of Shadowlands, but you do get to see her again. And this might be what the Bronze Dragons were reacting to back in the Caverns of Time. They might have been really worried about her going to the Shadowlands. Now, Salandria, Liandrin, and Dawnheart, another elf, went all the way to the gates of Deathhome when you used the Ransur to destroy the Scourge in the Dead Scar, which is kind of interesting. So after all of that, after the big battle, after you destroy Volrath for good, Salandria admits that she still has lessons to learn, and she ends up back in the Hall of Blood in Silvermoon, and there was a ceremony, and it honored you. And evidently that is a really cool thing that I'm going to have to head to the Shadowlands and maybe see if I can do it. Now, when you are all done with your adventures with her, she does actually send you a letter. So evidently the orphan matron makes everyone get thank you letters. You also get your choice of pets, and I love the Outland pets. You can get Sleepy Willy, you can get Legs, you can get a Ellic, and what is the last one? Oh, Egbert, who is hilarious. I love Egbert. The Alliance orphan that you pick up in Shattrath is Dorna. Dorna's parents were also killed in a war, and she has lived in the Shatarath orphanage her entire life. You take her out to visit her older brother, Geel, who is now training with the Consortium. And after that, you take her over to the Throne of the Elements, where she seems to have some sort of a connection with the elements out there. And after you're done doing that with her, you take her out, just like you did with your blood elf, to go and visit Dark Portal. And she is so impressed at seeing the Dark Portal that she wants to see what's on the other side of that portal. So you take her all the way to the Exodore, where she is going to go all the way down to the very bottom and see the Naru Oros. According to the Naru Oros, Dorna is very special and destined to become someone very important. You also find out that she has been communicating with Farseer Nabundo in her dreams, and when you take her to visit him, you find out that she has the ability to wield the elements without being trained, and Nabundo thinks that she must have inherited the power to be a shaman from some ancient ancestor. After you do that, you take her all the way out to the Caverns of Time, where, just like your blood elf, the dragons there all react to her. But the most important thing is that in the Exodore, you get a blessing from the Naru who is there. You also get a blessing. It's not just Dorna that gets it. You get it it's an hour. And Oros tells us that Dorna has a lot of potential. And that's actually caused in no small part by the kindness that you've shown her. Norbundo is so impressed by her that he says he is going to basically adopt her and train her as a shaman. Now, unfortunately, you don't ever get to find out what happens to her. She might be in a future expansion, since Cylindria did show up again, so maybe we will see her again in the future, this Draenei girl who can wield the elements without being trained, and who a Naru thought was very special and destined to basically be a hero. So that is Dorna. But we're not done yet, because either Horde or Alliance can do these. The orphanage out in Dalaran. And specifically, I am speaking about Northrend Dalaran, not Legion Dalaran. So to start these quests, you go and you see Orphan Matron Arya, who, in case you are interested, is actually wearing the extremely rare Formal Dangui. It is sold by Greena Sunshadow in Moonglade. It almost never shows up, but that is who sells it if you are ever looking for that outfit. So, interesting little trivia fact for that. Now, Orphan Matron Arya, there isn't really any other trivia about her, except she has the unenviable task of taking care of Wolvars and Oracles. And they're kind of natural enemies if you did the questing out in Sholazar Basin, so they don't like each other at all, and they're always fighting. In fact, quite often you will see her saying, "Children, behave! No one will want to adopt you if you keep acting like that." And she seems very happy to send you off with either a Oracle orphan, whose name is Rue, or a Wolvar orphan, whose name is Kikik. And you can only take one or the other, but you make your choice, and if you pick the Wolvar, Kikik, he's going to want to go out and he's going to want to go to Grizzly Hills because he wants to go see the home of the Bearmen. He wants to go and see his future self in the Bronze Dragonshire. And he also wants to go play with some more Wolvar puppies. So you head out to Molokai Harbor and you get him a playmate. They throw snowballs at each other. It's actually really cute. If you're doing it at a level where the hostile Wolvar are going to attack you, just be careful before you summon him. But if you're at max level, just kind of stand far enough so that you don't aggro. After you finish that, he wants to go see the Dragon Queen. So you take him up to the top of the tower and you visit Alexstrasza. And then he wants to go and meet the mighty Hemet Nessingwary himself, because he wants to be a mighty hunter too someday. And when you take him to visit Hemet tells him that the first thing he needs to do if he wants to be a mighty hunter and join the Nessingwary expedition is to read the Green Hills of Stranglethorn, because Hemet Nessingwary, that man is good at self-promotion. And, you know, Kikik, he's not sure that he's ever going to be able to read, but he does ask you to help him learn to read. But, you know, he's like, yes, I can do this, because if all else fails and I can't read Mr. Hemet's book, I can throw it at my enemies' heads. And then after you're done with that, he does want to go back and he wants to get a paper zeppelin. He wants to throw it back and forth with you, which you do, and then you take him back to the orphanage where you have your choice. And I'm pretty sure that it gets mailed to you if you don't already have one, of getting a Wolvar pup or an Oracle hatchling. But the only choice I was given this time was just to get either the Curmudgeon's Gold or the Pet Care package. Kikik's counterpart is Rue. He is a Gorlock child. And Gorlock children, I do have to say, Gorlocks are not nearly as cute as Murlocs as far as noises, but I have a fondness for Rue. Rue's kind of cute. And he also pretty much wants to do almost the same things as Kikik did. He wants to go and he wants to go see the biggest tree ever. He wants to see his future self in the Bronze Dragonshire. But he wants to go also get a playmate, and he wants to play with a baby Murloc. So you head out to the Borean Tundra, to the little Murloc enclave there, where King Gurgle Murgle is, and you get him a little playmate, and they dance, and it's cute because you get to hear the little Murloc baby do the da 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 da. That was terrible. Sorry about that, everybody. After that, he also wants to go and see Queen Alexstrasza. But instead of seeing Hemet Nessingwary, you get to do something a little bit more fun with little Mr. Rue. And that is an interesting thing, that if you didn't know that Ungoro Crater and Sholazar Basin are linked, this might have been the first time that you ever got to learn that. Because you take the Waygate from Sholazar Basin all the way to the Ungoro Crater and meet a Great One. Now, if you would like that Waygate to be permanently unlocked, do the questing with the Avatar of Freya in Sholazar Basin, and that particular Waygate is ever after a permanent little portal straight to Ungoro Crater. So that is your fun fact for the day. But after you're done with that, you take him back to the Wonderworks, you buy your paper zeppelin, and return baby Rue to the orphanage. It's actually a really sweet quest. The Northrend quest is a little bit shorter than either Shatarath or Stormwind, but that's okay because the next batch is more than enough to make up for it. During Battle for Azeroth, they added some more orphans into the mix. So out in Borealis, deep in Hook Point, and honestly kind of hard to find, is the orphanage. And Orphan Matron Westerson is there, and she's looking kind of put upon, but she gives you an orphan to take care of. She says, "Though we have kept to ourselves for many years, Kulturas has still felt the cost of war. The orphans in our care have lost their families to many tragedies. Pirates, witches, fires, beasts. We do what we can to provide them a caring home. Many stay here until they're old enough to go out on their own, and we do our best to train them for their futures and apprenticeships and livelihoods. Our favorite time of year is Children's Week, where adventurers like you can take the kids out to see and learn more about the world." And so that's what you do with your orphan, Liam. Liam is actually kind of cute. Honestly, I really like Liam. He is your Kulturan human orphan, and he wants to go out and see the sights because he wants to decide what he's going to do when he grows up. So you take him out to see the shrine where he meets a tide speaker who takes him on a little bit of a water spout journey, and he is so impressed. He's like, "Oh my goodness, this is just so cool. I am having such a good time with this." And when you leave, he's pretty sure that he wants to be a wave speaker. Then you take him out to visit the Roughnecks. And when he's out in the Roughneck camp in Tirigard Sound, he thinks that Kultarans are really tough, but the Roughnecks are the roughest and toughest. And the Roughnecks there are so impressed with him, and they let him ride one of the baby griffins, and it's so cute. Honestly, I love doing these quests. They are literally so much fun. But after that, he's like, "Yes, I'm gonna start eating right now so I can be big and strong and be a roughneck." But you're not done yet, because he also wants to see the pirates. So you take Liam out to Freehold, and he gets to meet a pirate. And the pirate actually kind of lets him in on the fact that maybe he doesn't want to be a pirate. You know, a pirate is not the best life. He says, "A pirate's life ain't all that great. You'll never have a warm hearth or your own bed, and upstanding citizens will call you a no good." But Liam, he still wants to be a pirate because pirates have cool hats. But that's okay, because the Irontide recruiter, he gives little Liam a hat of his very own. And Liam is quite impressed with that. He still kind of wants to be a pirate, though. But, you know, there are more choices. He's heard about the shapeshifters and the people who have birds as friends. So, you're going to head out to Drustvar. The first place I went was to see the statue of Aram Waycrest at Aram's stand in Drustvar. And when he gets there, he meets a falconer. He's like, "Oh my goodness, this is so awesome." And the falconer introduces him to his falcon Winston. And he is completely impressed by that, and he wants to know what he has to do to make friends with a falcon. And Inquisitor Notley tells him that he would need an open heart, because falcons know the intentions of everyone around them. And Falcon says, "Well, that's not too bad." You know, Liam's like, "I can do that." But after Inspector Notley walks away, Liam confides in you that the first thing he's going to have to do is stop chasing the birds and maybe feed them instead. The last place that he wants to go is to see the druids at Ulfar's Den out in Drustvar. And he is so incredibly impressed by the druid that he meets. The druid he meets is Arthur Tradewind, and he wants to know all the things that Arthur can turn into. So Arthur takes the time to show him all of the different things that he can be, including a seal, which he probably shouldn't have done on dry land because he does it upside down. I kind of wonder if he's not related to our favorite druid, who I can't remember his name of, but he's out in the Western Plaguelands. But he kind of reminds me of him. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and by the time you're done, Liam is almost positive that he's going to keep his ears open and see if he can hear the call to become a druid. But after all of that, it is time to head back to the orphanage. And you get back to the orphanage, and Liam has said that this has been the best children's week he's ever had. And he is pretty sure that now he knows exactly what he wants to be when he grows up. He wants to be a hero just like you. He says, not just a hero though, he is going to be the best hero, roughneck, pirate, tide sage, falconer, druid ever in the history of the world. And you get to pick a pet, because you always get to pick a pet. And you have the choice of the enchanted sorolisk, the sandy hermit crab, the beakbert, or the slimy pouch, which will get you a froglet. Or, of course, you can get the Curmudgeon's 5 gold or a pet care package if you have all of the other pets. So, pretty cool. But we're not done yet. No, we're not. We are not done yet because we still have the Horde side to go and see this orphan. And these guys are a little bit more interesting because they aren't really talking about the war in Zandalar, but caretaker Pade lets you know that the orphans here, they're in their care because they're casteless. They have no families, no homes, and they watch over them and make sure that they get food and care. But it's not easy for these kids to rise up from being casteless in the Zandalari society. The children have rough lives ahead of them, but they do their best to provide them with what they need. Some of these kids have connections to the Loa. They're tested, and they will one day become priests and priestesses. Others show strength beyond their age and might become warriors one day. So, he hands you over your whistle, and you are introduced to Azala. Azala is a Zandalari troll child who is an orphan, and she takes you out again on wonderful adventures where you get to first go and see the Loa of the Winds. You get to visit Paku, somewhere in Zandalar. She's a popular Loa who's in charge of the sky and the sea. That's a lot of blue. And blue is your orphan's very favorite color. And of course, you get out there and you do all sorts of fun things with her. And you get to play with the chicks. You get to do all sorts of interesting things. But Azala's a little bit afraid of Paku because she's bigger than she imagined. After you visit Paku, you go to the lair of Gronk in the Garden of the Loa in Zuldazar. And she is extra interested in seeing Gronk because she has heard the priest say that he is the most welcoming of the Loas. He even lets his followers worship other Loas. But the best thing about him is that he and his followers can change into lots of different forms. And of course, she's going to show all of the forms. And it's kind of fun, you know? She's like, I want to see all of the shapes that you can do. And Gronk says, I am the master of shapes. If you choose to honor me, I will grant you the power. And Azala actually gets turned into all of these different baby dinosaurs. She turns into a raptor, a brutosaur, a platysaur, and then a direhorn. And she is so impressed by that. And she says, maybe I want to change shapes too, and I'll be loyal to you. So, she was very, very impressed by that one. But she still hasn't decided what Loa is going to be her Loa as she goes. So off you go to the Frog Marsh. And when you go to the Frog Marsh, you go to visit Kragwa. And that is out in Nazmir. And Azala says, the caretakers are always telling us stories in the Hall of Cass. Sometimes they warn us of danger, and sometimes they're about the Loa. One time, they told us about Kragwa, and how the blood trolls killed his followers and he hasn't been seen since. But I heard that he's back. He's back and plotting his revenge against the blood trolls. So, you walk towards the statue, and Azala's pretty impressed by the giant shiny frog statue and all the fireflies, and then she runs towards the spawn of Kragwa and says, Froggy, can you show me around your home? And hops on the frog, which scares her, but she does get a cool ride. When she gets dropped off the frog, she says, Kragwa, you've really come back. And Kragwa tells her, but have you brought me a snack? And then Azala gets a little bit panicked because she's a little bit afraid that Kragwa is going to eat her. Now, those were pretty cool, but you're not done yet, because now it's time to take Azala to the Terrace of the Devoted, where she is going to meet Setharis, who seems wise but scary. And Azala meets Setharis at the keystone. She wants to touch it, but she's kind of scared away from that because Vorik says that keystone is very powerful and very important, and no, you can't touch. But an avatar of Setharis spawns on the keystone and actually scolds the priest. And, you know, they're all pretty impressed with her. The avatar says, young Zandalari child, you may be used to getting away with whatever you please as you skulk through the streets of your home, but be careful when dealing with powerful artifacts. Dishonesty under my gaze is not taken lightly. So, Setharis is not very impressed with Azala, but, you know, she's a little bit naughty. And when you complete the quest, Azala says, Setharis seems wise, but scary. Are you sure we can't go back and get the shiny, though? So the last place that Azala wants to go, even though the trip, she says, I know that the trip is supposed to be focusing on the Loa, but I want to see the Island of Gold. She's heard stories of undead pirates and an island that's covered in gold coins and treasure, and she wants to see it. So, you take her out to the Golden Isle, and she says, it's incredible. Have you ever seen so many shinies in one place? With so many shinies, I could be a rich mon. And she wants you to open a treasure chest for her just to see what's inside. And when the chest spawns and she starts looting, you get the buff Recruit of the Damned or the Curse of Shrinking debuff. Which Azala's like, oh my gosh, there's a curse? No wonder no one's ever come back with this treasure. Let's get out of here. And when you get out of here, you're going to head back to the orphanage and get your reward, which is one of the pets. So that was a lot of fun. There wasn't a lot of lore connected with any of the orphans except maybe the ones from Burning Crusade. And that is something that I kind of regret. I'd like to see a little bit more about these kids when they grow up. Because I'm thinking that, you know, at least the early ones should be adults by now. It's been a while. But anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this trip through Children's Week. And if you didn't do Children's Week this year, I don't think that it's still going. I probably should have put this video out last week, but I didn't. Anyway, if you have any NPCs that you would like to learn a little bit more about, or just listen to me babble about them, drop them down in the comments down below. I do love doing these videos, and I will see you next week.